Hello, my friends. This is part 4 in a series of videos on how I do forecasting. What do I actually do when I get the birth data from the person and I want to predict for them? What do I do? This is part 4. I'm going to cover 5 things in this part 4. If I don't finish all 5 of these, there will be a part 5. So we'll see if there are 4 or 5 parts to this series of videos. First thing I'm going to do is I want to talk about the difference between transits and progressions. How do they work differently? And most of these ideas are from the consulting experience, from doing people's charts. In our controlled research studies, we have validated transit-to-natal. Like, wow, they work. All kinds of things, accidents, gold prices, when people have mental illness episodes, etc. Progressions and solar arc directions, we haven't done as much research. We don't have as clear evidence from the data, so most of that is from the consulting side of things. But let's talk about what the difference is between transits and progressions. Then we'll go on to these other 5 items. In the order that I had this in the previous videos, I'm still on step 1, which is the timeline forecast. So this first thing we're going to talk about is when we're looking at this timeline forecast, how do we distinguish between transits and progressions? How do they work differently in our lives? Well, here's the answer. We're looking at the transit-to-natal aspects for me for the coming year. And suppose we see, we just randomly take one of these. Well, let me take a nice one. Jupiter conjunct the Sun-Mars midpoint in late December and early January. Now it's transit. How would that be different by progression? I've been thinking a lot about this, and here's my current sense of it. And I think it agrees very well with many other astrologers, vibrational astrologers and other astrologers. Just a slightly, different way of saying the same kind of idea, certain perspective on it. I'm looking at the transits as the situation that you're in. It's where you meet the world. Intuitively, you might think transits are just what the world is doing to you, because it's literally where the planets are in the sky. For example, today, where are they? And how they're like bombarding you, how they're hitting you. But actually, from watching transits, and I think most astrologers agree with this, it's not that it's just the outer world hitting you. It's the interface of you and the world. And to give an idea of why I say most astrologers, I think, agree with this, when transiting Uranus is crossing the 7th house cusp and a relationship breaks up, it's not that the person is just has these surprises happen to them. They're participating in it. They're wanting it. Sometimes it feels more like it's from the outside world. Sometimes it feels more like it's you, but it's the interface. So it's where you meet the world. Here's what I think is an expression I like better. It's the situation. It's situational. It's the circumstances. It's where I have found myself at this point. So when transiting Jupiter is conjunct the Sun-Mars midpoint, that's a great success combination where people grow, they step up, they achieve something bigger. Why? Because there's something inside you at that time when Jupiter's conjunct Sun-Mars that you feel it. You feel these transits. They're not just from the outside. You feel it. You feel like, wow, I can do this. And the outer world responds. It's kind of like a selective perception. When that transit happens, you draw it to yourself and you give attention and you immerse yourself in those things that are related to it. By contrast, say when transiting Pluto is opposition Saturn, Uranus midpoint, then the person is more sensitive to anything that they feel is too repetitive, too redundant, and then they want to break free from it. So your thoughts, your feelings are changing to where that's more important to you. It gives a highlight to it. So the transits highlight that part of your life, and they get you involved in things related to it, and they magnify it. So it's the situation, the circumstances of what's important to you in your world and how you want to change or deal with the world you're in, where you live, who your friends are, what your hobbies are, what you do when you wake up on Saturday morning, what the circumstances are. So transits are circumstantial, situational, and where you meet the world and what you want to do with it. Okay, so that's transits, where you meet the situation and where you want to direct things. So Pluto, Saturn, Uranus, where do I need to break free? Jupiter, Sun, Mars, what big things can I achieve? And you will draw them to you, you will experience them, and you will be involved with them. It's almost like magic, the way our thoughts and feelings will get mirrored by the environment. So that's transits. Let's go down and look at the next thing on the list. Progressions. The progressed chart is you, how you are changing and evolving. It's a part of yourself that is aspiring. It's your aspiring self. It's what you want to become. It's what you are growing into. The progressed chart is a day for a year. So it's a synchronized alternative time system. So it's a fractal time relationship where there's like a cosmic clock where one hand of the dial goes around in a day and the other one goes around 365 times in a day. It's like a Swiss clock where some gears are moving faster and another one's moving 365 times slower. And this time relationship, this fractal time relationship, is showing how some part of yourself is aspiring to become something. So it's about you. It's not circumstantial. It has very little to do with what's going on in the world. I think that's why the progressions are not working so well in our research, is because events do happen by progression, but you create them. And in a way, there's, you might say, less stress or less confusion or less interpersonal conflict, because it's about you, that you have changed. We're all changing. We develop new interests. We suddenly decide, I want to learn Japanese, or I want to learn martial arts, I want to, whatever. We develop new interests. We had a little bit of that interest before, but things develop inside us. That's the progression. And those things that develop within you from the secondary progressed are very, very, very important. They're parts of yourself that lead you, you might say, upward. They open a door for you to develop in new ways. It's like a plant sprouting a new kind of branch, and also a new spectrum, a new set of experiences. So we become more complex, richer, we develop more sides to ourselves over time. It's like you have an acorn, it's uniform, very consistent, and then it becomes more variegated, more complex, more new structures developing. And the progressed chart is like these new structures, these new sides, these new stations, like radio stations opening up. And the progressed-to-natal shows how you're taking some core, lasting part of yourself, a part of yourself that never changes, that's always there for the entire lifetime, and how it can connect to this new side of yourself. So the progressed-to-natal shows how these fundamental energetic systems that are there for your entire life, how they can develop and evolve. So it's really marvelous. It's a really cool thing that you can see this. So let's take an example. Progressed Sun conjunct Mars Neptune midpoint, exact in early January. Mars Neptune means achieve your dream. So when Mars Neptune is strong, it's difficult for people to do their job if they're not excited about it. It's a time when people lose patience with anything that's boring, tedious, repetitive, and just doesn't click for them. They're just going through the motions. It's just not exciting. Now you may wonder, well, exciting is Uranus, it's not Neptune. But Neptune is what we live for. Neptune is not some fantasy, some delusional thing out there. That's one idea of Neptune, but in vibrational astrology, we don't agree with that. Neptune is the dream that you want to make real. It's why we get up in the morning. Neptune is not so far-fetched and like out of normal reality. Neptune is really, in a way, the most important thing. It's like what we aspire to. What would make life beautiful or magnificent or exciting, just magical, you might say. And magical can be something material. If you make enough money, you would feel like life would be so glorious. Some people feel like, oh, if I just made more money, wow, this would just be like a dream come true. That feeling of a dream come true. It can be things like money. Neptune's not always some far-off, fantastic fairyland. Now, Mars-Neptune means I need to follow my dream. I just can't do this stuff that I'm just not excited about. Sun means it comes to life. Now, progressed-to-natal means that the dream inside you wants to develop new expression. It wants to become fuller, richer. It wants to incorporate new elements. Oh, that's a good way to explain progressed-to-natal. Progressed-to-natal means you want to explore new elements in what's fundamental to you. You want to take on a new style, a new color. You want to bring in something you haven't looked at before or you haven't experienced. Because we can't experience everything. You know, we only live in one place at one time. Your curiosity is aroused by secondary progression. It's asking, the secondary progression is asking you to expand, evolve, explore into new things. Add new sides to yourself. And natal means comes back. So Sun, progressed Sun, conjunct Mars, Neptune, is saying, what did you want to do when you were a child? And that's still in your heart. What is that dream? And now, as an adult, or now in this position in your life, what does that dream look like? And how could it evolve into new ways? Not based so much on interfacing with the world but feeling new things inside yourself, finding something that you didn't know you liked so much. You might find, gee, I really like painting. I really like working out and being more athletic or fit or something. It's asking you to change your lifestyle to something that's you're growing into, that you weren't completely that way before. So transits, more situational. Progressions is your personal evolution. Progressed-to-natal is how you take something inside yourself and add new dimensions, new styles, new flavors, a new spectrum of experiences to it, new variations on the theme. Now we go down, we see progress to progress. That is just you. That is what you are becoming. And it's, you could almost call it spiritual, like some aspiring part of yourself can change. The progress chart's asking you to change, not because of the circumstances. Transits are interested in circumstances. Just because things change. It's like something reconfigures. The progressions are reconfiguring of you. The original configuration is still there, but another part of you reconfigures. So what happens in the progress chart is something for you to explore, experience, and develop new sides to yourself. At a minimum, maybe it's not completely new. Maybe it's something that you've always been interested in, but it should take on a different quality. It should take on a different style, a different expression. It's like somebody changing their instrument if they're a musician. Like maybe they play guitar and they decide, hell, I would like to play a wind instrument. I'd like to play clarinet or saxophone. Really, it just intrigues me now. You pick up the saxophone. You develop some other style. Or maybe the person plays electric guitar. Now they want to play an acoustic style or different kind of tone quality to it. Different feel, a different new part of yourself. That's what progressions are asking for. Asking you to change, to become a little different from what you are. Now, transit to progressed, that's where there's a strong interaction between this new thing you want to become, that you need to become, that there's a force to become, and the circumstances, because the transits are situational. So it's an interface where you're feeling like say a musician who plays guitar, and now is thinking, gee, I would really like to play piano, because piano gives some like fundamentals, whatever, or they want to play a wind instrument or something, but then they don't have the money, to get that instrument, or there's some other issue, there's challenges with it. So it creates more of an interface between something you want to become and what circumstances are there, which is natural, because if you become something different, you have to deal with your environment in a different way. You might need new resources, you might need a different situation, you might need different friends, you might need to be associating in different places. If you suddenly develop an interest in organic gardening and you live in an apartment and you have no place to garden, that's like a classic transit to progress. You've developed this interest. Well, not that you never want to do organic, have your own little garden before, but now it's just really gotten big. Like you just got this urge, like, wow, I really would love to do this. And you really never had that, or maybe it's been a very long time. Progression is making you go into a new area, The transit's saying, well, here's the situation. How are you going to make that change given this? And so that's your challenge. That's your tug of war to make that work. And the solar arc. Now, solar arc is very strong. It's very strong, especially by conjunction. The conjunctions are very, very strong. Now, the solar arc sun will be the same. The solar arc to natal will be the same. Sun will be the same as the progressed-to-natal. We saw earlier my progressed sun conjunct my Mars-Neptune midpoint. It shows up in solar arc as well because the solar arc sun and the secondary progressed sun are the same thing. But any other planet will be something different. For example, solar arc Jupiter, well, this is an opposition. Let's do another conjunction because they are clearly strong. Let's see. Let's do. Let's see a good example here. Well, I'll go ahead and do this one. Solar arc ascendant is conjunct my moon on April 30th, end of April, early May. Solar arc ascendant conjunct moon. Anytime you're doing the ascendant midheaven, the exact time of birth is going to be critical. For each minute that the birth time is wrong, changes that by about 3 months on average. So if the birth time is off by 2 minutes, we could change it by half a year. And this is how we rectify the chart. We see exactly when it happens. But somewhere in 2023 to 2024, somewhere in this time, say the end of 2023 to 2024, solar arc ascendant to the to the moon, that means there's a change in your roots. There's a change in what your home is, what your heritage is. Often when the ascendant is conjunct the moon, for example, solar arc ascendant conjunct natal moon, the person develops a new ethnic affinity. They may feel more distant from the family they grew up with whatever religious tradition it was, with whatever expectations there were. They suddenly feel, well, that's really not for me. I'm more interested in this. You get a change of heritage. It can be a religious change. Why religion? Religion as a lifestyle, not religion as a philosophy or a belief system, but as the customs that are involved in it, the style, the mood, the atmosphere. And oftentimes the person will move, they'll rearrange their lives. So the solar arc is just very, very powerful, and it's the same as progressed-to-natal. It's something about you, not so much the environment. It's not so much like with solar arc, the person's solar arc ascendant to natal moon. So unlikely the person is forced to change. Like they're renting and the landlord raises the rates and they can't afford it, they have to move. It's not usually forced by the environment. It's typically you do it. You do it because you want it. You're feeling it. You're feeling a change in your demeanor. You decide, I don't want to live in this city anymore. I've lived in this city for 20 years. It's very nice. Everything's convenient. I have all these great restaurants and great places to go to. But it's just too hectic. I really want to just be a little quieter, way out in the suburbs or something like that, or vice versa. A change in the tone, the atmosphere, and it's all self-generated. You're feeling it. That's the solar arc to natal. And the solar arc, as I mentioned, I think it was in the first video in this series, the solar arc is a way of analyzing resonances in the progressions. The solar arc is taking this fractal relationship of the spin of the Earth on its axis and the revolution of the Earth around the Sun, creates this fractal relationship, and it's measured by how far the Sun has moved. I explain this in other videos. Anyway, it's taking this critical Sun-Earth relationship, which is the foundation of progressions. A day, has nothing to do with Jupiter, Mars, Mercury. They could jump up in the air and skip rope and do whatever they want. It's not going to affect the day in a year. Day in a year is just the Sun and the Earth. That Sun-Earth relationship is what creates secondary progressions, and there's a way of measuring it over time, which is how far the Earth has moved in relationship to the Sun. And from our point of view, it's how far the Sun moved. So the solar arc is a critically powerful, fundamental force behind the progressions. And when other planets come into that same arc, they just resonate. It just resonates with this very fundamental thing. So from the point of view of vibrational astrology, where we're looking at resonance and vibration, we could have almost invented solar arcs just out of theory. It just makes perfect sense. So they are very, very powerful, especially the conjunctions. Okay, well, I spent the entire time, almost a half hour, just on describing that. So there will be a part 5 in this series, and I will cover the other topics in part 5. We'll see if I get them all done in one, which is step 3. Oh no, we haven't seen the notes. Okay, there might be even 6 parts to this. We'll see. Next video in this series, I'm going to show you how I take notes on what we're seeing in the timeline, and go on to step 3 as well in the next video. Okay, my friends, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for being a member. God bless. Namaste.